Alright guys, today in our math lesson we are going to be talking about rounding to the nearest 10, and you'll see on this page I did my best job at drawing a baby Yoda talking about some math. Not my best work, but I will continue to practice. Alright, so just a little saying that we can kind of remember to help us going forward. 4 or less, let it rest. 5 or more, raise the score. Everything after the rounded number changes to 0. So let's go ahead and go on and see what that all means. So there are 3 steps that we can use when we're trying to round a number to the nearest 10. The first step is to find the rounding place and underline it. So if the number that we're talking about, let's say, is 27, we need to first find the rounding place and underline it. So, in 27, since we're rounding to the nearest 10, we are going to underline the 2. That is step 1. Find the rounding place and underline it. So we've already underlined the number that we're going to be rounding to the nearest 10. So step 2 says look at the number next door and put a box around it. So the number next door to the right of our 2 is 7. So we're going to put a box around the 7. That is step 2. Alright, so we have our number 27. We've done step 1 and underlined the place value that we're rounding to. So the 2. And we put a box around the number next door to it, the 7. Now with the number that's in the box, you have to ask yourself 4 or less, 5 or more. All right, so before we do that, I want you to think of a thermometer. A thermometer is that tool that we use to measure temperature. And if we were to ask you to read what the thermometer says, and 27 was the number that it read, and we wanted you to tell us about what temperature is this, we would ask you to round to the nearest 10, and you would say that it is 30. Now, let's pretend that instead it's 27 and the number is actually 22. Well, then you would say that it's closer to 22. So whenever you're rounding, just try to think to yourself, what 2 tens is the number between? Well, 27 is going to be between 20 and 30. All right? So then you say, well, 7, is that 4 or less, or is that 5 or more? 7 is definitely going to fall under the 5 or more question because 7 is greater than 5. So when it's 5 or more, you raise the score and go to the next 10 that it would be. So if we wanted to round 27 to the nearest 10, the answer would be 30. So let's practice again with another number. Let's take the number 52. Following our directions, let's find the rounding place and underline it. So we're going to be underlining the tens place. So that's going to be our 5. Moving on to step 2, look at the number next door, put a box around it. So it's going to be the 2. Okay, ask 4 or less, 5 or more. So I'm going to think about my thermometer and what 2 tens that 52 would be between. 52 would be between 50 and 60. All right, so I'm going to go back to that number in the box and ask 4 or less, 5 or more. Well, 2 is less than 4, so that means it's going to be going towards 50. So if I wanted to round 52 to the nearest 10, your answer would be 50. Now, this is kind of what looked like on your homework sheet the other day. It had a number in the middle, and it wanted you to put the 2 tens that 46 would be between. So, you can follow the same steps, find the rounding place, and underline it. Look next door, put a box around it at that next number. All right, well, if I went up from 46, the next 10 would be 50. And if I did not round up, I would stay in the 10 that you're in, and you would have 40. All right, so let's try again. We need to figure out what are the two tens that 21 is between. Well, think in my head a thermometer. Try to picture where 21 is. All right, well, if I round up, 21 is going to get me to 30 is the next 10. If I round down, I just stay in the 10 that you're in, so then you just stay in 20. All right, so let's follow our steps. Find the rounding place and underline it. Look at the next number, put a box around it. Ask 4 or less, 5 or more. Well, 1 is less than 4, so I know that if I had to round 21 to the nearest 10, the answer is going to be 20. And we didn't do this up here, but if I needed around 46 to the nearest 10, 6 is 5 or more, so then I'm going to round that to 50. Another way you can think about rounding to the nearest 10 is you can draw a number line. So let's say that we wanted to figure out which 10 I would round the number 63 to. So I'd find 63 on my number line. All right. Now, what is halfway between 60 and 70? 65. Okay, we can see that here. 65 is my halfway point. Anything to the left of 65 is going to be rounded to 60. And anything to the right of 65 is going to be rounded to 70. So 63, I can see here, falls under the left side of 65, so that means I'm going to round it to 60. All right, another example, say you wanted to round the number 68. Look at your number line, find 68. You see that 68 is to the right of 65, so that means I'm going to round it to 70. All right, guys, good work today. Your homework is going to have you practicing rounding numbers to the nearest 10 and understanding what two tens a number is going to be in between. All right? Good job.